Welcome to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G. This podcast is all about connecting the community with the thought leaders of business and entertainment in the cannabis industry. As this industry expands and becomes more and more mainstream, we want to educate and entertain our listeners and become your choice and voice for all things cannabis. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. Have you visited MJ.com? MJ.com is the online destination where you can find everything you need to know about the emerging legal marijuana industry. Where else can you find the latest original content, news, and trends? Connect to a local doctor to obtain your medical marijuana card, receive exclusive brand savings, and have your favorite product delivered straight to your front door? MJ.com has it all. Go check them out. Welcome to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and today we have a special guest, Dr. Rosemary Mazanet. She is the Chief Scientific Officer of Columbia Care, and she's going to tell us all about Columbia Care. They're in a whole bunch of different states. They're doing great things, and they're part of an industry-wide study to uncover the effects of CBD on the human body. Rosemary, welcome to the show.
Hi, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's great. So why don't you tell our listeners, please, a little background on who you are and how you got into the cannabis industry.
So I am an MD and a PhD. So I'm a clinician scientist. And so I'm interested in pharmaceuticals work, not just giving them to people. I trained as an oncologist, which is a cancer doctor, and did that for a number of years in Boston. And then I went into sort of the pharmaceutical biotech industry for a while. And the good thing about that is I learned how to conduct studies and to determine if products are safe, if products are working for people, who they work for, when they don't work, why they work. And from there, I moved back to the East Coast and have been involved with cannabis probably since 2013, when I first started collecting data with Columbia Care patients back in 2013 in our first two states, which were Arizona and Washington, D.C. And, we've just grown a database. We know with their permission what our medical patients are using and what they feel works for them. We do a lot of observational work with our medical patients, and we've gotten into the cannabis recreational area in the states where that's become allowable as well. And we want to make sure that regardless of whether people are taking a medical product or a recreational product, that it's safe and it gives them the effect that they want. And then, so we've now, turned that into the CBD space as well. And we're committed to producing, quality CBD products that people who want to take them for either conditions or just for wellness can have products that they know are quality.
Now, one of the things that we see from beginners or newbies, let's say, into the CBD or cannabis world, or people that maybe haven't tried it before, is when they speak to a local doctor or one of these factories to get their medical marijuana card, they're not getting an educated recommendation just because there have been so few studies over the recent years until this is more mainstream. How do you help a patient that is really, they're not looking to get high, they're not looking for the recreational side, they're looking to alleviate an ailment or a physical ailment or anxiety, stress, whatever it may be. How can doctors become more educated, and how currently are you helping those patients and giving them the proper recommendations with so little study behind it?
You're absolutely right. This is sort of the sad thing about this whole industry is that, so many people say this helps them greatly. And we know that it does. We know people with epilepsy, with neuropathic pain, we know that it's very helpful, but there isn't much evidence. The database that I mentioned that we started keeping in 2013, the type of things that we look at are what people repetitively have bought over time. So these have been patients, by and large, for medical conditions. And so, if somebody buys the same thing 3 times in a row, like 3 months in a row, then, that's probably working for them because they have to pay for it themselves, right? Sometimes people will refill medical prescriptions on a regular basis and have them delivered, but they don't necessarily, take it, and you can't rely on them. This is that they're paying for it, so we're pretty sure it must be working for them or they wouldn't be buying it. So when we look at all of that by disease state, by age, by other medications they're on, We can determine what people buy most often for certain conditions. And then, we can take that one step further, and we can look at the products and see what minor cannabinoids were in there as well. So it's not just about how much THC or how much CBD, it's about how much CBG, how much CBN, how much, CBC. And, as the organization has gotten bigger and we have more cultivars in more states, we're hoping to be able to do that for THCV in some of our states in the future. So, what we can tell you is what people have repetitively used, bought, and supposedly used with different conditions. And that's as close as we can get to helping people and doctors understand what to use. And actually, we have a lot of patients in this database now, a couple 100,000. So at some point that becomes big data, and that becomes very interesting. And, we're happy to share, this data is sort of proprietary, but we're happy to share it with educators. We share it with state governments a lot because they often are very curious about this. So, we're happy to make it available in an appropriate way.
Are there any general trends that you've seen for a certain type of product or strain that has helped a certain type of affliction? Maybe that you can just talk about in a general sense. Obviously, we can't go specifics on a specific patient, but are there any trends that you've seen that this type of product helps this type of ailment?
Well, let's talk about anxiety disorders or mood disorders, just without, again, because I'm not really here I don't want to be an advertisement. I think we all understand that there is some THC when it's not, mitigated by other cannabinoids that can cause a lot of additional anxiety or discomfort to people, right? So, for people who are looking for mood stabilization, or anything to do with anxiety, depression, they need to be careful that they have a product that is full spectrum and isn't really very THC heavy to the exclusion of other cannabinoids.
And the CBD study that Columbia Care and several other brands are undergoing, can you tell us a little bit about that study, how it's being done, and what the goals are?
This is really exciting. The government of the United States has been very interesting about how it approaches cannabis. It's sort of in general, as we all know, but for CBD, they sort of have been giving mixed messages. They want to allow it to have a place, but they're not sure how to regulate it. Now, I'm speaking for them, but I think that that's pretty accurate. So what we've decided to do as a group of concerned and quality CBD providers is try to help the FDA by giving them some information about safety in patients who are taking these products. So the two big things to learn here are that the FDA is concerned about the fact that people who have taken CBD in very high doses, so we're talking what would be the equivalent of like 700 milligrams a day for an adult, can have some evidence of liver function enzyme elevations measured in the blood. And, that's a concern. And that was seen in a study done with Epidiolex, done by a British company that got Epidiolex actually FDA approved as a drug. So, they have this background concern about what to do about this information that they have. And again, we all know that people aren't taking 700 milligrams of CBD a day, right? They're not. They're taking much lower than that. So, we're looking at volunteers who have agreed to participate, who are taking CBD, who have been taking CBD for some period of time. And usually their average dose is going to be between 20 and 60 milligrams a day. And they're being followed by a third party. And they will be having a blood draw at the end of this, and we'll be showing that to the FDA. This is what commonly people are taking, and at least for the drugs that we're providing for this particular study, which are quality drugs. As I mentioned, the companies that are involved in this, we're all very comfortable with each other and with each other's quality standards of our products. So, that's really great, right? People in the industry getting together saying, these are quality products. And we want to show the FDA that, people aren't having that same problem with the doses that they're taking. And our hope is that, the FDA will be able to regulate CBD appropriately after they see this evidence, and that some of their fears will be, alleviated.
Now, what do you see, speaking of regulation, obviously with cannabis overall in the country, it's the Wild West. Every state, city, municipality has different rules, laws, regulations. What do you see for the future? Obviously, none of us can predict exactly what's going to happen, but what do you see on both the CBD side and the cannabis side would be the most beneficial going forward? And what do you think actually in your gut will happen in the next, year or two?
Well, so the issues are the same. CBD is unregulated on a federal level, and so is cannabis unregulated on a federal level. So the job of the FDA is to be in charge of food and drug safety, right, as well as efficacy. So that's sort of what's been lacking here. On the CBD front, we all know there have been tons of publications where investigators have ordered, online CBD or bought some in shops that sell a lot of different things. Let's put it that way. And, they've had it analyzed. And in one study, 62% of the products that were analyzed were not what they advertised was in them, right? It wasn't the right amount of CBD. It had other things in it. There was one study that was a little bit smaller, but that was very alarming in that they found a lot of dextromethorphan, which is a cough medicine, in the CBD that they analyzed. So, when there aren't any quality controls, people can sort of make bathtub products and sell it anywhere. And that can be dangerous. Again, there's been bath salts and synthetic cannabinoids that have shown up in some of these CBD products that can be very harmful. Not only is it harmful to people, it's harmful to the industry, right? It gives the industry a bad rap. So I think many people in the CBD industry would like it if there were some guidelines as to what would be appropriate. What are some manufacturing guidelines and some enforcement of that? And we want to make sure that people aren't getting harmful products that, are really detrimental. So that's our hope. And I think that this step of doing this study for the FDA is sort of one point in that, because we're showing the agency our COAs and all of the manufacturing and the quality that went into these products. So the conclusions about this being safe are going to be only generalizable to companies that are selling a CBD that has similar enforcement, right? So, I don't think the FDA is going to come to the conclusion that CBD doesn't cause liver function abnormalities in people who are taking all CBD. It's just in people who are taking CBD like these products that had a quality product. So, that's what we're hoping, is that it ends up that there are quality standards, and eventually that agency or the government might enforce some of those quality standards, right? And it might become regulated like a food supplement, which wouldn't be a bad thing, because people just need to be receiving safe products and not dangerous products. So yes. That's sort of So that's sort of the CBD front. The cannabis front is a little bit more complicated because you have each state in there with its individual rules. So we're in 18 states, and I have to tell you, it's encyclopedic how much information I have to have available to me, because every state is different, right?
Yeah, it's funny. You segued right into my next question. Was you for Columbia Care, you're in a whole bunch of different metros. How do you keep track of all those different laws and rules?
Well, we do. We're very serious about it, but it makes it more complicated. So the reality is that the same way that the government, I think, is going to have to regulate safety for CBD, I think the government at some level realizes that, it's going to need to regulate safety for cannabis also. So, let's all hope that at some point, there will be some federal agreement that, the States Act might get passed. There seems to be bipartisan support for that. I'm not trying to be political here, but there aren't that many people arguing that there shouldn't be some sort of federal agreement that states have allowed this to happen. I don't hear a lot of pushback in the press or, in policy from either side. It's just that I think the government has had a lot of other things that have taken precedence, right? So it hasn't been as concerned about this as it has been about other more pressing issues. But ultimately, they are responsible through the FDA for the safety of citizens who are taking ingestibles. And by ingestibles, I mean anything that's a tincture, an edible, a pill. Actually, a vape is ingestible. And, all of this is going to have to be regulated for safety. We sort of got a little hint of that, when at least the government perked up its ears a bit with regard to, the vape issue and all of the people that had a pulmonary disease that was due to a contaminant, is what we believe, in the cannabis. That was meant to be, just an excipient, but was never meant to be inhaled. So, if there were some federal oversight, things like that wouldn't happen, because they would say you can do this and you can't do that. They would give a roadmap. And that would have been helpful for everybody to have a roadmap from the federal government. I mean, that's what we pay our taxes for, right? So, I think the federal government is going to have to do that. And I think it will be welcomed by most, ethical cannabis providers in most states, because it will make it more clear what we need to do to be compliant and provide safe products. And that's really what most of us want to do. We want people to like our products. We want them to enjoy them, to be safe, to have confidence in them. And I think I speak for, most of the people in the industry when I say that.
Yeah, so you mentioned politics, and we're not going to get into either side, but here's your curveball question. So we are recording this in the summer of 2020, and obviously there's a lot more important things going on in the world right now than the legalization of cannabis. But, last year I thought, during the presidential campaigns for the 2020 election, I thought that marijuana legalization was going to be a hot button topic. You would think, and I wanted to get your feel on it, just an out of left field question. What is your feel on, you have two candidates that really have opposed federal legalization for the most part. There's an opportunity to align with the public, who are about 70%, I think, in favor of legalization nationwide. You would think one of them would be able to capture some of those votes by switching their stance a little bit. Do you think there's an opportunity there for, either candidate? That we don't have to pick a side, like I said, but what are your thoughts? Like, do you think it'll just be pushed to the side this year because there are other more important things going on? What are your thoughts there?
I actually believe that both sides are on the same page to some extent. Again, it was the Attorney General, a fine man, Sessions, who was really very opposed to cannabis. But, they're very well-known Republicans. John Boehner is the biggest example, who have been very pro-cannabis and thought that there should be some, and have actually been involved in the industry, right? So, I don't think it's really a, Democrat versus Republican issue. I think there have been certain people, perhaps, who, were in a position to be able to make some policy or to delay some policy. They haven't made policy. They delayed policy that a Democratic administration had tried to put into place, right? They just delayed it. They didn't take it away. But, I think that there's less animosity here than one might think. And that creates a problem, right? Because it's not, I think it's not a bipartisan issue. So it makes it not something that people really want to campaign on right now. I think almost all state governments realize that the benefit of taxes that result from cannabis sales have helped their states greatly. And if they haven't realized that yet, I think they will as they try to recover from the COVID pandemic, right? So, I think that again, this is my opinion, but I think that the amount of disagreement about cannabis is shrinking. So again, that could be not good, because if everybody agrees and nobody's arguing about it, then, it's harder to find a place on some sort of rider, right?
Yeah, I agree. I was really, last year, I thought maybe it would be really interesting during debates or campaigns to have that as like I said earlier, a hot button topic. But I think what you're saying is correct. It might just be pushed aside because there is no argument over it. So
right. We just need to get it enacted. And unfortunately, I think that it's sort of, it's not great, and it's sort of broken, but we're not hearing about the problems with it. So, maybe it's not a big issue because the problems with it aren't, in their face every day. But I'm hoping the states that have been reluctant, I'm hoping the federal government in general realize how much the taxation revenues have helped the states where it is legal. And, that may be a deciding factor here. It may be more the pandemic than politics.
Yeah. All right. So tell everyone, where can they find more information about Columbia Care, and what type of products, or maybe some of your top most popular products, and what your company offers to consumers?
So Columbia Care is online, Columbia Care. We have, although we do studies with Columbia University in New York, we are not affiliated with them. The name actually, just to give you 2 seconds, the name came from the fact that it was the New York headquarters that sort of won the day. Initially we were Patriot Care, Capital City Care. We had a different name in every state that we were in. So, and it sort of reflected, we had applied and were denied going into Connecticut back in 2015 or so, but that would have been Constitution Care. So, we had all of these names, and Columbia Care was the New York branch, and that stuck because that's where the headquarters was. So it's very easy to find online. I believe the website will give you drop downs to individual states. And in individual states, we have different types of products that are really sort of speaking to what that state allows. So in almost all of our states, we have ground flower as a product, which really is very popular. People to have sort of the experience of flower, whether it's medical or it's recreational. In all of our markets, we also have very medical products. Okay, so like you take a pill or something, and it takes a while to work, but it's going to be extended release. So we have products that are hard pressed tablets that are for people that need to have the effect all day long, that don't want to have sort of a whoosh, that don't want to have the rapid onset, but want to have a sustained onset because they're at work all day. And then we have products that are immediate release. So, we have sort of the gamut depending on what people need for either their medical condition or what they want for, their recreational needs. We do have some branded products, Theraseed, which is a high THC product on the medical side, Clariseed, which is a high CBD product on the medical side, and Eliseed, which is an equal C and T product on the medical side. And those come in all different form factors, again, from vapes to the hard-pressed tablets, which give you sort of an extended release. Those are patented because the formulations contain minor cannabinoids in certain amounts that we feel were most efficacious for people based on that database that I told you about. So, we also have a more sort of recreational brand called Seed to Strain. We have a number of products. Again, what we can sell in different states is a little bit varied, but we're hoping that, as the federal government sort of allows us to, that we'll try to have a lot more standardized products across states. We don't want somebody who goes from Connecticut to New York to have to buy a different to not be able to find what they want, right? So that's our goal, is to ultimately be able to have, high quality selling product and rapidly selling products on both sides of state borders.
All right, so let's finish up with something that excites you, either about your company going forward or about the overall industry going forward.
I'm excited about the industry. Again, I'm promotional enough. Okay, so that you got my soapbox. Okay,
no problem.
But I have to say that as an industry, the people that are really dedicated to making safe products, that understand that people take these products, are really quite, we're more aligned than you think, and we talk more than you think in a very positive way. I mean, the Valid Care study for CBD safety is an example of that. But it's similar on the cannabis side. We realize that we're only going to get the trust of the federal government and keep the trust of the states if these products are what they say they are, and they don't contain impurities and other things. So it seems odd that, some of us are really looking to be more regulated. But in reality, that's what people need. They need to know that the products are safe. I say this all the time. I have a 27-year-old son. If he drinks a beer, he knows what's going to happen. If he uses a product for recreation, he needs to know what's going to happen. He needs to know how long it's going to happen. He needs for it to be reproducible and predictable, right? And, I think taking the guesswork out of, what is this product? Is it the same as it was the last time? Who knows? I think taking the guesswork out of that will be really excellent for a lot of people who, whatever their needs are. We need to just have a little bit more standardization. That doesn't mean that, we can't also have bespoke products that, but people need to know what they're buying. People need to know what they're getting and taking. So, I think people are in the industry. Many of the companies are really aligned to that idea, and that's very exciting. We're not all in there fighting with each other. We're really not.
Well said, well said. And Dr. Rosemary Mazanet, Chief Scientific Officer of Columbia Care, thank you for sharing your wisdom, experience, and knowledge with our listeners. We appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, thank you very much.
We will see everyone next time on the Pot.Live podcast. If you are into the recreational side of the cannabis industry, yes, stoners, I'm talking to you, then thepot.com is the online and mobile destination for you. That's right, THEPOT.com, thepot.com. Where else can you find the exclusive Pot Mate of the Month? Take a pot quiz and win prizes. Scroll through hilarious memes and jokes and check out the latest podcasts, news, and trends, all while having your own profile and voice in the pot.com forum. Visit thepot.com today and get lit.